Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to the course Introduction to the Psychology of Bilingualism and Multilingualism. I am Dr. Ark Verma from the Department of Cognitive Sciences at IIT Kanpur. This is the last week of the course, and incidentally, this is the last lecture of this course as well. In this week, I've been talking to you about certain miscellaneous topics in bilingualism and multilingualism. In the last three lectures, we actually looked at bilingual literacy acquisition through bilingualism and multilingualism. We talked about how people learn to read across different languages due to different writing systems. In the last lecture, we talked about the purpose and the overall beneficial nature of bi or multilingual education. In this lecture, I'll take you slightly to a different direction and we'll talk about another very applied aspect of bilingualism and multilingualism, and we'll try and ponder about whether bilingualism and multilingualism, or how bilingualism and multilingualism has sort of changed the landscape of communication across the world. Now, one of the major applications of bilingualism and multilingualism, if you look around yourselves, is media and advertisement. You go on a drive, you are driving through any road across the country, you will see that billboards on both sides of the road are essentially bilingual or multilingual. If they are not bilingual, sometimes they are actually writing let's say Hindi words in English script, English words in Hindi script. I'm sure this is pretty much the case for, say, for example, other parts of the country as well. Not only that, it is also very similar in ways it manifests across the world. So bilingualism has become the norm for communication, at least mass communication, not only in India but across the world. And one of the major paradigms of mass communication is media and advertisement. I was talking about billboard advertisement. You can look at shop names, you can look at brand names of products, or you can also look at the way people communicate on social media. You can look at how people write their comments on YouTube, how people post their things on X, how do they publish their websites, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, very interesting application of bilingualism and multilingualism that you tend to see if you look around the world, if you look around any kind of public platforms, large platforms for sending out messages, and trying to access a larger range of audience. And remember, in today's time, a larger range of audience does not really mean just your district or just your state or just your country or your continent. It is basically we're trying to, because in the era of globalization, the entire world is an open market, so to speak, and everybody who's creating a product or providing a service wants to reach and wants to have reach to the entire world and have access to largest number of people possible. So one of the driving, and also this has been one of the driving, so while I'm talking about how bilingualism has become the default way of mass communication, it is the other way around as well. Bilingualism also drives mass communication in a particular way, and mass communication, needs for mass communication also in some sense force people to become bilingual and multilingual and achieve and acquire the ability to learn and communicate in different languages at the same time. If you look at the last few decades especially, you will see that there has been an exponential rise of the possibilities for language contact, which have been prompted by global advertising, internet communication, and other forms of electronic media, say for example Facebook, X, YouTube, and so many others. Now, one of the most interesting forms of electronic communication has actually been global advertising, as I was saying, which offers the possibility of language exchange and mixing, both in terms of producing, sending out messages, and consuming or comprehending the messages that are out there. People want to know what is happening in different parts of the world, as well as they also want themselves to be heard across the world, across different parts of the world. Now, an interesting aspect of this, global rise in bio or multilingualism has been that it has mainly centered around English. Now, this is interesting in a sense, but if you look at it historically, the British actually conquered more than half the world. Wherever they went, they colonized people, and they imparted their own culture, their own language. And this is probably one of the main reasons why English has become a lingua franca across the world. Also, most important, the most powerful, both militarily and economically and politically, most powerful countries also sort of speak English, or at least English is one of the major languages that they speak. Say, for example, while North America, Britain, Australia, etc., speak English majorly, other countries of the world, such as China or countries of Europe, as well as India, also place a lot of importance on English. So English in that sense has become a major lingua franca, which has basically invited everybody to learn and acquire English, because there are so many advantages to it. Now, this is interesting because if I'm saying that you have to learn English, you are also not leaving behind your native languages. So the phenomena that you see across the world is that of plurilingualism, which basically has been harvested or utilized in all forms of electronic communication, but most importantly in advertising as well. Now, a very interesting aspect of this plurilingualism is that across the world, advertisers consciously or unconsciously have favored plurilingualism because they want to increase or enhance their reach to the larger sections of the society. Again, society does not mean just restricted sections, but we're talking about the entire world. Also, advertising is becoming a very integral part of modern day communication, especially in electronic media, because that is what basically drives everything. All the content that you create, that you see created on Instagram, YouTube, so on and so forth, basically is monetized because the money is coming from advertisers, and those advertisers, because now content is consumed across the board, across the world, the advertisers have chosen a lingua franca English that they want to push and peddle in, and therefore you will see that across the world, whatever content you're consuming, there are English advertisements interspersed across the whole length of a video or a movie and so on. Now, there are some key issues that we can discuss about this trend of global and international advertising. As you know, globalization can be defined as an integration or an integrative outcome of the interaction between finance, markets, technologies, and information systems in such a way that it's bringing the world together. The idea is, and some time back, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi also said that information is going to be the currency of the next, century, because it is information that everybody wants to both consume and propagate, and it is this propagation of information that is what is bringing people together, and everybody wants to do it in a faster way, in a cheaper way, and more effectively, trying to reach the largest sections possible. A very interesting concern in this has been this paradox of communicating in a manner that is effective and appealing at both the global level as well as the local or regional level. So, for example, if you look around, you will see that there are ads that obviously are there in your regional language. Say, for example, I'm living in North India in IIT Kanpur, so obviously a bunch of ads that I consume are in the language of the region, which is Hindi, but they are generously interspersed with English as well, in a sense that it sort of also appeals to a larger and global audience. This is a very interesting paradox basically, because at the same time advertisers want to reach both the global audience as well as the local audience with the information that they want to sort of put out. And it is very interesting if you sort of are conscious and looking around and observing. Say for example, you might have noticed how international brands adapt their advertisement pitches, their taglines, their slogans, even their product portfolios across different countries. Say for example, when McDonald's came to India, they started with the McDonald's Aloo Tikki burger, which is obviously not what they sell in Europe, because they sell cheeseburgers, which are cheeseburgers and hamburgers and so on and so forth. Similarly, you have a dosa kind of wrap as well. You have a dosa kind of burger as well. You have a McSpicy paneer wrap. And basically, you see that McDonald's, and not only McDonald's, there are so many other brands. The way we consume cold drinks, they taste different in different countries, and it is because manufacturers adjust the sugar content, nutritional content according to the local preferences as well as local rules and regulations. Now, another interesting choice that confronts advertisers has been the choice of language. Obviously, if you look at it, and I've been talking about this, in a particular manner so far, that if you cursorily only look at the ads of global brands, it would reveal that English is the default choice for global advertisers and marketers. It has become one of the most used languages and has dethroned its competitors such as French and Russian, and thus become the single most important language in this era of globalization. And interestingly, as advertisers, need to solve this customization problem, or this paradox between global and local regional levels of reach, while an initial intuition would suggest that supremacy of monolingual text should be there in advertising, Barty and Ritchie actually suggest that advertisers have tried to solve this paradox by adopting an approach grounded in the prevalent plurilingualism. So again, it is English and another regional language of choice that people are majorly following. Now, this solution is important because it creates a communicative accommodation, which is an important ingredient, allowing advertisers to gain maximum appeal for their products, and also creating favorable effective consequences. So, this is precisely the problem that I'm sort of bringing to you, and I'll basically present a few examples here and there to basically help you appreciate how bilingualism or multilingualism has impacted and has probably got impacted by economic, political, socio-cultural phenomena. I'm taking just one case, which is the case of advertising, but if you try and extrapolate it to several other kinds of happenings, you'll find that these things are also propelling bilingualism and are getting supported by this culture of bi and multilingualism as well. Now, this whole paradigm of advertisement, the language of advertisement, for example, can be studied through a variety of approaches. There are linguistic approaches to look at them, there are literary approaches to look at them, there are also semiotic approaches to look at them, which basically talk about how certain layers of meanings are being, propagated across the largest sections of society. Focusing on linguistic approaches, within linguistic approaches, you can also see there are 3 or 4 different kinds of things there. There's a linguistic approaches, there's semantic approaches, pragmatic approaches, and then psycholinguistic and other information processing approaches. Again, this is just a bit of a typology that I wanted to let you know about. But let us go ahead and look in slightly more detail about this plurilinguist sort of view of advertising. Now, the 3 very salient features of this plurilingual approach to advertising are as follows. First, advertising is essentially considered as a mixed system that involves both verbal and non-verbal components. So you'll see there are pictures, there is music, there are different kinds of these sensory information as well as that there are verbal components. And these media components and textual components, they sort of exhibit a complex pattern of information sharing, which you can see that forms a sort of a continuum. On one end, there are ads in which there is a lot of text, and on the other end, there are ads that have a lot of multimedia content. So you can basically see that it is a perfect balance of multimedia and text that advertisers have wanted to create in order for them to be able to create the maximum impact, the maximum appeal, the maximum reach for their products. Another, the verbal component of an ad, for example, mirrors two very critical complementary aspects of this bilingual multilingual social behavior. For example, there are efforts to keep two linguistic systems separate. So for example, you will typically see older bilingual ads would have a whole page in Hindi, and then you turn the page and you will have the whole page in English. So I'm talking about pamphlets that are very common in the previous decade. There is also an interesting thing that some of more creative advertisers and marketers have actually looked at mixing and integrating the two linguistic systems. Say, for example, if you look at the ad of Pepsi, it is very interesting that they come up with a tagline which says "Ye dil mange more," where you will see that first is the entire brand, the brand name, product name, etc. is in English, but the tagline is half Hindi, or let's say 75% Hindi, and there's an English word just to add an effect, just to add that creative buzz to it. Now, while language mixing has therefore become an integral aspect of multilingual verbal behavior, plurilinguals somehow are regarded as having trouble in expressing their thoughts, and their language usage is somehow considered slightly impoverished, because what happens is, if you move ahead or if you move away from expressing yourself in a single language, you sort of start running out of the best ways to put your thoughts in, and therefore a mixed approach sometimes is actually judged as lacking grammar, lacking the overall sense, and so on. And this is typically what is mirrored in the negative view of advertisement. Say, for example, bilinguals mixed verbal behavior has sometimes been referred to as according to this negative view, as deficient in in quality, and deficient in semantic content, as well as syntactic correctness, and so on. It is often seen, and at least in earlier days, if you're mixing languages and speaking, and by the way, now also you'll find a lot of people are purists. They will tell you that, okay, if you're speaking English, only speak in English; if you're speaking in Hindi, only speak in Hindi, and they will have all sorts of arguments in support of that. And it's interesting, for example, Gumpers and others have pointed out that bilinguals, when they are mixing, they actually become rather conscious of their language mixing. And if you point that out to them, why are you speaking in both of these languages? And you can see that I mixed here, they would become slightly apologetic about it, and which is in some sense very interesting. Now, there is obviously a neutral view to this as well. For example, according to this neutral view, language mixing only accomplishes basically this low-level cosmetic effects. It grabs attention. When you see, Pepsi's tagline that "Ye dil mange more," and there are so many ads with so many these jingles and taglines, you will see that they basically work best in grabbing initial attention, but they don't really, engage people for the longest time. They are sometimes seen as a transient fad, or a rather short-lived charm. All right, and therefore the evidence for this view sort of lies in the fact that advertisers only occasionally use foreign language materials just to grab the attention, but later they sort of shift to mainly monolingual messaging, monolingual text, and so on. There is also a very positive view of this. So a positive view of this is basically, which looks at language mixing as a very systematic and rule-governed phenomena, which is used to satisfy the creative needs of bilinguals or bilingual creators of these advertisements and so on, especially which can neither be met effectively from either of the two linguistic systems. Say, for example, if you wanted to create a head-turning effect, if you want people to catch up on that jingle, it is interesting because if you say "Ye dil mange more" and there is a violation of language, it suddenly grabs attention. And somehow I'm at a loss of remembering so many of these examples, but you will see that there is a lot of this, and it not only provides creative expression to the ad creators and jingle creators and so on, it also achieves that effect of this grabbing this attention and getting people engaged with your products in the first place. So this view recognizes the fact that language mixing in advertising can satisfy the deeper innovative and creative needs of advertisement writers, and it also helps create the desired effects of persuasiveness, naturalness, and other psychological effects that work in the advertisement industry. Now, now we've seen the different views that are there that exist for language mixing in the advertisement space. Now, in the next few slides, I'll show you some examples of how this global spread of plurilingual advertisement is happening. And again, as I said, English has been the epicenter of this. Now, interestingly, if you see, English has or is the epicenter of these plurilingual approaches to advertising and marketing. For instance, it has, and there are solid reasons for that. For example, English has official status in at least 75 countries with a population of over 2 billion individuals. Moreover, it is spoken as a first or a second language along with one or more other languages by around 750 million people in 750 million people. Around 800 million people are believed to be speaking English as a foreign language. So you can see the reach that English offers you, or English advertisements offer you, are obviously incomparable to any other language in the world. Interestingly, according to the British Council, English is not only the choice language for books, newspapers, airports, air traffic control, international businesses, most academic conferences, science articles, technology articles, diplomacy, sport, international competition. You can name a particular area and you will see that English is rather prevalent in those areas. Now, moving on, there has been a lot of research about this global spread of English speaking communities, and it has led to some sort of development of typologies and models based on users and the users of language. One very interesting typology was put forward by Kachru in 1985 and then updated in 2005, which basically talks about three concentric circles, and these concentric circles are basically categorized as the inner circle, outer circle, and the expanding circle, which basically represent those countries that were initially speaking English as a native language, and those countries where English exists in its non-native context, which is your outer circle, and also finally those countries who recognize the importance of English as international lingua franca. I mean, you can see here, you see that inner circle basically contains countries like USA and UK. Outer circle is probably colonies of these colonies of Britain in that sense, but there is obviously an expanding circle, for example, in countries like China, Japan, and so many other countries that are increasingly day by day recognizing the importance of communicating in English. They are making considerable changes in their educational systems, their systems of communication with the outside world, as well as their language of the economy, the language in which businesses are conducted, for that matter. Now, I just present a bit of a demonstration for you, basically looking at how English is being used very interestingly in advertisement, especially through non-Roman scripts. So you see, when English advertisements are found in Roman scripts, mainly across Europe, because most of the European languages use the Roman script, they do not really cause that much attention grabbing, that much turning of heads, or probably not to us. But if English advertisements are brought in and made part of non-Roman scripts, that is certainly a head turner. So let's look at a couple of these demonstrations. Look at this ad. This is the ad of शानदार शक्ति अपनाए LML Vespa T5 ES का एरोडायनेमिक अंदाज. इसकी सीट को बनाया गया है खास आपके लिए. स्टीयरिंग हैंडल का डिज़ाइन ऐसा कि आप जितना भी चलाएं थकान महसूस ही ना हो. 8 bhp की शक्ति जो जाग उठे सिर्फ बटन दबाते ही. बेमिसाल रफ्तार के लिए कुशल इंजीनियरिंग से बना सस्पेंशन जिससे यूँ लगे कि आप हों हवा पर. Now if you see, it's a very interesting ad of LML Vespa. It's a very old ad. LML Vespa is probably something that used to be around in the 90s and probably early 2000s, if I'm remembering correctly. But you will see this is a very interesting ad, which is, by the way, written in Hindi. predominantly using the Devanagari script used to denote Hindi. But interestingly, you will see that the critical aspects, because they cannot be translated from English, they have been denoted just like that in the Devanagari script. In some sense, you see there's a lot of romanization of Indian languages. Here you can see that there is a Devanagarization of English, which is basically trying to peddle English major ad to the Hindi speaking, Hindi reading audience. Another example of the same kind is this Korean ad, and I'm sorry that I cannot read Korean, but you can see that there are critical aspects which are presented in English. Say, for example, this thing like coloring, the AGM. There are other aspects also. So in molding, color designing, AGC, and then there is this branding of Samsung company here. You can see this is a Korean ad. Majorly it is in Korean. Obviously the script that is used is Hangul, which is used to write Korean. But this is also a very interesting ad which has both elements of English and Korean in that. And in that sense, it sort of allows the advertiser to reach a much wider audience. Let us look at these ads in a little bit more detail now that I have shown you them. So, while the Hindi advert from the outer circle India, capitalizes on the relatively high incidence of bilingualism, in India with English, it does not make any attempt to reinforce English either by means of paraphrasing anything in terms of English or writing them in the Roman script. The creators of the ad actually assume that their readers will be bilingual, so they will be able to understand English and Hindi at the same time. And also, if they're not bilingual, these people are pushing them to sort of read English words because they are written in the Devanagari script. Because reading from the Devanagari script is very transparent, very smooth, it's a phonologically transparent language, as we have discussed in the previous lectures. You might not need to put any other effort to read an English word which is written in the Devanagari script, because it is very easy to read. Also, if you look at this Hindi advert, you will see that the only explicit sign for the presence of English in the Hindi is the model number of that thing T5ES, if you remember, which is actually the only part that is mentioned in the Roman script. Okay. Interestingly, the ad seems completely monolingual because it's totally written in the Devanagari script used to write Hindi. It basically employs the attention getter in Hindi. Say, for example, monolingual text called Shandar Shakti, which is written in Hindi. But if you look at it more closely, you will learn that the body of the advertisement includes Hindi interwoven with English, and which is italicized and written in the Devanagari script. So it's drawing attention. It's drawing attention to the mix of languages. It is drawing attention. It's first appealing to the local audience by putting everything out in Hindi, writing in Devanagari script. But in that sense, it is also appealing to the bilingual audience by, once they start reading, if they know how to read Hindi, they will also get, the details in English which could not be translated to Hindi. In contrast, if you look at the Korean ad, it does not expect the same degree of bilingualism amongst its consumers or on part of its readers, and the ad is built primarily on a paraphrasing strategy. Okay, the readers are initiated into bilingualism by the inclusion in the ad of both kinds of scripts. So you have something written in Korean Hangul, and bottom of that you will find the same thing written paraphrased in English. Also, the Korean ad exhibits the use of English in a more elaborate way. Okay, it's in the critical areas of the advertisement. Although the ad creators have used English expressions in the Roman script, say for example in the acronym AGC, in molding, color design, and the whole word of coloring, where color and R is here and then ing is there, the overall ad actually contains much more text in Korean depicted in the Hangul script than in English. The attention getter, however, the expression coloring is obviously English, which basically makes for a much wider appeal of the advertisement. Now, if you look at it, both these ads therefore reveal a very interesting strategy on the part of the ad creators, which reveals generous use of English as the key attention getter for these ads, not only in Roman but also in the script of the native language, which seems almost, it seems very surreptitious that you write English word in Hangul or English word in Devanagari, and you expect that people will just buy into this, and they will sort of get sucked into reading this. More importantly, both ads demonstrate how the marketers and advertisers have solved this global versus regional paradox by including an international language in the mix, although the ad is generously interspersed with key elements in the regional languages. So, the Shandar Shakti ad is an actually Hindi ad. The Korean coloring ad is actually a Korean ad, but it has a lot of English, basically making it appeal both the local and the global audience. Now, multilingualism basically, so this is again, so slightly moving ahead, let's look at this construction of ads in a different setting as well. Say, for example, let's look at how these ads are structured so that we sort of understand this in some more detail. Now, given the brief demonstration in the two ads we just discussed, let's look more closely at the structural aspects of how these advertisements are constructed. So, Bhatia and Ritchie have characterizes the construction of an ad in 8 parts. Its product name, it contains product name, company name or logo, labels, pricing, availability, slogans, main body, and headlines and subheaders. Again, it is important to note that various considerations would go in when you are constructing an ad and creating these parts. For example, pricing and availability are primarily contents based things, and they don't have much in terms of the structure of creating ad and so on. Also, not all the ads that you come across will have all these 8 parts, and even when they do, they are not mutually exclusive. So you will see them, it will be difficult to separate them out from each other, and they are always not constructed in the mutually exclusive manner. Now, another very interesting concern that happens is basically the consideration of how these ads are created in the medium that they are going to appear. So, for example, if you're creating an ad for television, you'll create it differently. If you're creating an ad for billboards, it will be created differently. If you're creating an ad for social media, it will also appear differently. So, you'll see nowadays every advertisement agency has several channels of communication, and they actually tailor their advertisements to the specific communication channel. So, an ad on Instagram versus X would actually look very different from an ad on Facebook or an ad on YouTube, which will allow you more space. Similarly, an ad on a billboard versus an ad on television will also be very, very differently constructed. So, just by way of demonstration, let me show you another ad which has been combined by Bhatia and Ritchie. You'll see this is an ad for Tirupati spices, probably sometime long back, which has been put together, and you see it's very interesting. Jale par namak zarur छिड़किए, and then you have all of this text in Hindi. So स्वादिष्ट व लज़्ज़तदार महकता हुआ खाना हर रोज़ बनाए, खाने की महक पड़ोसन तक पहुंचने दीजिए, वह जले तो जलने. So again, you have a lot of messaging in Hindi, but interestingly, if you see, everything is in Hindi here in these parts. But if you look at the packaging actually has all of these details in English. So you can see again how advertisers are cleverly using both Hindi and English text together in the same advertisement to still, while they mainly want to appeal the local audience, they also have an eye out for in their packaging for the global, markets, for the global consumers. Alright, again, this is something that I've already mentioned. Now, so this ad uses and if you look at this ad, it uses a very interesting rule-violating strategy to grab attention of the consumers. For instance, common sense would dictate that one does not rub salt on wound. Jale par namak छिड़किए. Obviously, you don't rub salt on if you have a wound or if you have a burn. But this has been used as an attention getter in the ad. As soon as you listen to somebody saying "jale par namak chidkiye" or add salt to your burns or wounds, you will you'll automatically your attention is grabbed and you want to see, oh, why is this person saying something like that? So it basically violates traditional wisdom and basically draws attention to the quality of their product. And then you can see in that Hindi paraphrasing, they've actually explained that if you make so flavorful and so tasty food, it will the aroma of the food will reach your neighbors and they'll become jealous, and this is a good thing, and so on and so forth. Okay, so interestingly, if you look at this ad, it also reflects the changing societal values, in the Indian society. Given that making one's neighbors jealous would be considered counter to Indian values traditionally, because neighbors are typically considered to be part of our extended families. Now, also note that the ad is primarily in Hindi and the body of the text is majorly written in Hindi using the Devanagari script. The critical aspects on the display packaging, as I was mentioning, was created in English. Also, interestingly, you'll see there is a minor tagline. So, there is a Jale par namak chidake tagline in the Hindi ad, but there is also a minor tagline on the packaging which says the great taste of Marwar, which is written in English and in the Roman script, so that it is able to reach a wider range of consumers. So this is again a demonstration of how bilingualism and multilingualism has been utilized by advertisers and marketers, and how they have sort of used this whole balance of plurilingualism, balance of communicating to global as well as local audience at the same time. I hope you enjoyed this course. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. And this is from my side the end of this course. And I hope by the time you finish all of these 39 lectures, you will have learned a lot about bilingualism and multilingualism, and it would help you in various ways. Thank you so much. Goodbye.